Hello everyone, my name is Zach, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well today. In the music and video game communities, there's something called the desert island question. Basically, you're told you're going to be stuck on a desert island for either the rest of your life or for however long, and you can only take so many games or so many albums with you, and someone asks you, what are you picking? I really enjoy that question. To me, it's a really personal question, and it says a lot about your tastes and kind of opens up some interesting stories, and so I wanted to do something similar for BookTube, but I wanted to make the premise a little more BookTube centric. So here's the new premise. Read with Cindy shows up at my house one day. I know it's not going to happen. It's a joke. It's a premise. Okay, just play along. All right. And she tells me, "All right, Zach, I gave you the shout out. You're riding on the Cindy train now, which means you're embracing minimalism. All this shit, it's gotta go. But I'm gonna be nice and let you keep 10 books. So pick them out, because I'm a busy woman. I ain't got all day." So with that in mind, I have picked out 10 books here in the order of least to most important. And I'm going to talk about what books I picked and why. Also, yes, I know the premise is goofy, and I'm not making fun of Cindy. Again, it's just a joke. Just relax, okay? I actually wish I was more minimalistic. I'm running out of freaking room on my shelves once I actually put all my books back, so I need the minimalism is what I'm saying. Anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and dive to the 10 books I decided to keep and why. Some of these are just, I would want a copy of the book, and some of these are, I want to keep my specific edition of the book. When I talk about my reasons why, hopefully you'll understand which is which, because you're smart, right? I got faith in you. You can do it. Alright, so starting out with book number 10, it is Robert A. Heinlein's Starship Troopers. I talked about this in my Problematic Books video, so you probably know a little bit about it. But it's a military sci-fi classic, and not only did I really enjoy this book, and also it was like the first book that made me engage with like problematic content, but also this represents a really important part of my reading journey where when I first started reading, I was locked into reading only Stephen King, Star Wars Expanded Universe novels, and classics, and this was the first time I started to kind of branch out and explore. So this book's kind of important to me for that reason, so I would want to keep this. Speaking of classics, I would want to keep at least one classic I know I'm going to like, so I would keep Arthur Miller's The Crucible. Again, I've talked about this already in my Florida book tag video, but I read this for school in 8th and then again in 11th grade, and then I've read it after school. I think it's a really powerful, important novel. Or, it's not a novel, it's a play. What am I talking about? Anyway, I really enjoy this, and I would want to have it on hand to read whenever I want, and have my one classic that I can always turn to and know I'm going to enjoy. Book number 8 is Stephen King's The Shining. Spoiler alert, there's going to be 2 more Stephen King books. I know I'm mean to him when it comes to my wrap-ups as of late, because lately there's been a lot more misses than hits when it comes to Stephen King, but I do actually really enjoy his work, and this was my introduction to him. I listened to the audiobook of this when I was 14. Really enjoyed it, and it's a little bit longer, so I think it'd be good if I only have 10 books to have something like this. On top of being my introduction to Stephen King, it was also my introduction to kind of serious scary horror, so I'm forever appreciative to this book for that, and I would want a copy on hand, so I'm going to keep this one. Alright, so for the next book, book number 7, I'm a firm believer in the idea of having guilty pleasures, books that you know aren't that great, are honestly kind of bad in this case, but it's junk food, and also I don't really want to go to the library and pick this one out and have people see that I'm reading it, and that is Star Wars Death Troopers. This is a Star Wars zombie novel. Yes, I've read this. Yes, I love this. No, I'm not proud. But it's a guilty pleasure for a reason. I really enjoy zombies, I really enjoy Star Wars, and the fusing of these two worlds is so ridiculous and so fun that I love it, and I would, you know, I just want to have it on hand to read whatever I want, and again, not have to try to sneakily check this out from the library, which I don't even know if they have this, so I don't even know if that's an option. So, keeping this little bugger, it's ridiculous, it's fun, it's a Star Wars zombie novel, what more do you want from me? For book number 6, we're going to my first somewhat collectible book, and that is the Bachman Books by Stephen King. This is a collection of the first 4 novels written under Stephen King's pen name Richard Bachman, and it has since been taken out of print because it contains the novel Rage, which talks about a school shooter and has been found to be in the possession of several real-life school shooters. On top of this being collectible, I find Rage kind of an interesting oddity. I don't really recommend it for people because of the sensitive content, but I find it an interesting kind of thing to read and kind of analyze, and I realized there was no real kind of ill intent behind writing it. It was just kind of a story Stephen King wrote. Also, this collection contains The Running Man, which is one of my favorites from Stephen King, so I would be able to have both those stories in one book. So it's almost a hack for this video, but you know, whatever. It's one book. Even though I'm very grateful for The Shining for introducing me to Stephen King, and the Bachman Books is more collectible, if I had to keep only one Stephen King book, it would be My Darling Dolores Claiborne. I love this book, and I don't want to live without this book. I always want this book in my collection. I actually own 2 copies of this, and I might get another one, I don't know. This is a great story about motherhood and love and the things you do for those you love, and it's just a powerful story. It has a really interesting writing style. It's really well told, and I just love this book, and I want to have it. The next book I would keep is Phil Collins' Not Dead Yet. This is a memoir of Phil Collins, who is famous for his solo music career, for being the drummer and eventual singer of Genesis, and for doing several Disney soundtracks. I hope you already knew that, but if you didn't, there you go. Anyway, I got this book for Christmas one year from my parents, and it was the first musician's memoir that I read, and I really enjoy musicians' memoirs. As a musician myself, I really enjoy hearing about the life of musicians I like and kind of where they were at and the things that inspired their music. And because this one was given to me as a gift, it has a special place in my heart. And plus, I'm just a really big fan of Phil Collins, so if I'm only keeping one memoir, it's going to be this one. Alright, we are down to the last 3, and the first of the last 3 is an absolute chunker, and that is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. First of all, just look at this thing. This is over 1,200 pages. If I'm going to get through this at some point in my life, which I actually got about 500 pages, and then I put it down stupidly when we went on vacation, and I never picked it back up, so I gotta figure out if I'm going to start again or just read a chapter by chapter summary back to where I was, but anyway, this is my grandma's favorite book of all time, and I promised her that I was going to read it at some point, and so I want to make sure I have a copy to read, and also it being her favorite book, I'd really like to have a copy of it in my collection. And again, because it's so long, I don't want to worry about having to read it in the time frame of a library loan and worrying about, you know, how many renewals I have and is someone else gonna like request it and cut my time short. If I'm gonna get through 1,200 pages, I want to be able to take my time, enjoy it, so that I can tell my grandma that I fulfilled my promise. So, keeping this behemoth of a book, there you go. And this is it. We are down to the last 2. And the first 8 could move around, but these are definitely the last 2 books I would keep if I had to get rid of everything but 2. The second to last book is my most collectible book, and it's also a book I just really, really like, and that is The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. This is actually a 1960 first paperback edition print, so it is very old. It's over 50, almost 60 years old at this point. So I enjoy having something that's somewhat collectible, and it's not in too bad a shape, but also, I mean, just look at that cover. That is such a delightfully cheesy cover. I love it. It's just great. But also, just having this book, I really like the font. It's nice and blocky and black, so it's really easy to read. It's small, and it being collectible, it being a book I really enjoy, I definitely would want to keep this. And the last book, honestly, was a super easy choice. The very last book I would get rid of is Star Wars Allegiance. Now, you might be wondering why the hell this book wins over all those. And the simple reason is, this is the first and only book I have gotten signed and personalized by the author. I actually got to meet Timothy Zahn at a Star Wars convention I went to a few years back. He is a super nice guy. If you ever get the chance to meet him, I highly recommend it. And he writes really great books. This isn't my favorite Star Wars book. It's not my favorite sci-fi book. But it is really solid, and if you ever see a book with Timothy Zahn's name on it, and you're sort of interested in it, highly recommend it because he's a great author, and he's a very nice guy, and I have a signed book, and I don't want to get rid of it. So there you have it. Those are the 10 books I would keep if I was forced to get rid of all my books except 10. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to know in the comments or in a video of your own what books you would keep if you were forced to get rid of all your books except a select few, so either write them down there or make your own video. If you like this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe if you feel so inclined, and I will see you next time.